It was November 2012, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. Complete shock, absolute shock. Typical man, didn't say anything about it, kept it to myself. Noticed that there was an enlargement of the testy and went and got it checked out, which is still a little bit surreal when I speak about it now. The NHS were very good, excellent. So you go in and you have this sort of 3-4 week window where you don't quite know. So they give you the diagnosis fairly early, sort of 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. Then you go through this sort of waiting period where you don't quite know how severe it is. I was extremely lucky, very fortunate that it wasn't life-threatening. It hadn't gone anywhere else. And then went in for an operation sort of some 3 weeks later. And then that was followed up by chemotherapy. But then you go through originally a 3-month checkup, and then I think that was for the first 2 years. It could be the first 12 months, and then it gets lengthened out to every 4 months and every 6 months, and then you get given the all clear then after 5 years, and we're some 10 years on now. It'll be 10 years to around about this date.
So before we talk about how it's affected you afterwards, take us back to the Sid Sutton of 2012, 10 years ago. You know, what was going on?
Life's got a way of showing you to slow down sometimes. And I was working in the city and covering Europe. Very busy, never took any time out. My mind always elsewhere. And then all of a sudden, I decided I'd had enough of that. So I got placed on 12 months garden leave, which sounds joyous and delightful. And I could play golf and practice, get myself fit and everything else. But it was probably the worst time of my life. I'd been on such an adrenaline rush for such a long period of time. It was probably the first time in my adult life that I'd actually slowed down, and the brain didn't like it. So I suffered massively from anxiety, huge amount of anxiety, where it sort of grew upon me that you never thought you'd ever suffer from this. And again, being a man, he didn't say anything, so he kept it inside, he didn't share it, he didn't sort of, because it wasn't a manly thing to do, which it's absolutely a manly thing to do, to share these things. So the two were inextricably linked. If you ask me, I feel as though my anxiety, my sort of years of struggling and not being able to share this, it did manifest its way into my body somehow. And then when I had cancer, it was almost a welcome relief, because I could share the cancer, I could share this, and I knew I was getting diagnosed, I knew I was getting looked after. But I wasn't getting looked after by anxiety because I couldn't share it. So it was something tangible. It was something people I suffered. I didn't really share with my my family that I had cancer either at the time, because I didn't want to sort of put the worry on them. So I kept it bottled up. But you massively learn. It's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I truly mean that, because you learn to cope with life in a different way. You learn to share these things. You learn to understand and empathise what other people are going through. And the last 10 years has all been about mental well-being, how that's linked into disease. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't be here sitting in front of you today if I hadn't gone through that experience.
So how did that experience and the experience, I guess, before cancer and everything you went through then, how did that, or how has that affected you going forward now, both personally but also the way that you look at your job here?
Yeah, huge. It's look, I never used to speak about having cancer. I think I've got a responsibility to share my story, hence me being here today, because I feel as though if one person's listening to this and they check themselves and they prevent themselves from having cancer or getting a quick diagnosis and then quicker treatment, then that's brilliant. I never used to share it. I used to be quite confidential about it, so it's important you open up. But I think that experience, along with suffering from anxiety, the first thing that I did was to learn to share and learn to talk. And huge. I used to thought I was a hero. I couldn't share this thing. I'm a man. It's all these ridiculous egotistical things, and that's taken me on a journey over the last 10 years that I want to share the story with people, but it's also given me a massive drive and ambition to do more for people's well-being and mindset, and that's ingrained into Sar Sharks and what we're doing here. One of the first things I did when I came in was trying to change the culture from to an expressive culture. Let's all speak our minds. Let's have an opinion. We've all got the right to have an opinion. And then some of the tangible things we did was introduce yoga to try and connect the mind and the body, because they are linked. But so the manliness of rugby then is going into this sort of yoga, which is a real sort of tangible part of this is where we're going, and we will continue to grow on this theme as well. I think we've only touched it. We used to. Physical training is a huge part of the job, and you eat so much protein, but the mindset is not been scratched yet. It's not, and I believe that next generation, next decade, can be all about how we make a difference in our mind.
What do you think maybe has sort of shifted the dial a little bit in terms of the way that people in these environments do talk about these things?
Independent of me, I think it's leadership, showing vulnerability and showing and just living and breathing it. You have to do that from the top, and you have to make sure the culture's right. Alex is brilliant at doing that, and then it just cascades and it becomes normal. Look, rugby's a game full of respect, hard hits, knocks, but the whole culture is changing. I think society's changing as well. We've become much more acceptable on mental health, and we just got to embrace this sort of cultural change. But we can, as I keep saying, we hopefully will win 4 or 5 titles, cups, competitions over the next 10 years, but we've got an opportunity to change thousands of people's lives by living and breathing what we're talking about, and then cascading that out into the community, not just exclusive to Sale Sharks. My biggest sort of goal or wish, if you like, is that we encourage the people that are of a younger generation, and we inbreed this into them, because then we don't have to get to a cure. We've always got this preventative nature that we can instill into youngsters and the academy lads and everybody that's coming through. It's good to talk. That's the basis of it.